and gentlemen, welcome on in. We are back for another episode of Fantasy Daily. It is Friday, August 19th, 2022, and I know I missed you yesterday on Thursday. You're probably furious with me, wondering, where's my fantasy football fix? I came here to YouTube looking for it, and you're not here, so where is my fantasy football fix? I apologize. I am here today on this Friday to kick off your weekend, and speaking of which, if you didn't get a show yesterday, that means you got one coming Saturday, maybe even one Sunday, because I got a lot of stuff. We're bubbling up to draft season. We got the AFC East show today, AFC West show tomorrow on your Saturday show, maybe a bonus episode coming up. And then next week we get right into the NFC breakdowns, which we'll be covering all those teams, which means there's only 4 episodes that we do. We got a bonus episode coming. And at the end of the show, if you stay long enough, maybe I'll drop what that bonus episode is at the end of the show. Let me underline it here, foreshadow it. So this show's really, and I really wanted to explain this now because listening through the other shows, I didn't think I explained it at the beginning. It would probably be a good, thing to kind of preface before we get into this show. Now, the AFC East and AFC breakdowns that we are currently doing, this is a condensed version of everything that we know and we feel. So it's very difficult to talk about, 8 players from each team, 32 players on one show in 30 minutes. You know what I mean? You basically get a minute per player, and I need more time than that. I need an intro, I need to be able to ramble like I'm doing right now, but these are the condensed versions of how we feel about these players. Later on, when we get into the draft episodes and stuff like that, when we really start, or if you go back into the draft or pass or sleeper episodes and those players on there, that's when we get really in-depth with the players, really looking at their numbers. This is the condensed version to give you a look at what the team looks like this year compared to last year, give our heat check on them, and kind of give them a mini projection on this show. So we just kind of give you the rough feel of, hot or cold, I like them or I don't like them on this show. So go ahead and check out the other ones if you haven't already. Draft or Pass series is a good one. Sleeper series I really like, and we're going to be doing a lot of other shows coming up soon that will really, really prepare you for draft season and really give you an outlook of where we feel about players. So let's get right into it first with the Buffalo Bills, a team that I have been stoked on for a couple years in the moves that they are making. So let's ramble off the roster first before I get into that. We got quarterback Josh Allen. We got running back James Cook and Devin Singletary. We got wide receiver Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, and Isaiah McKenzie. And we have tight end Dawson Knox. So a lot of returning players here. Basically all returning players are draft players. So breaking down this team. Now, obviously, Allen is going to be a number 1 again, which, speaking of which, I want to drop this on your show real quick. For anybody who uses the Sleeper app, Sleeper has their own kind of, publication that they do sort of like this. It's called Sleeper Wire. Now, Sleeper Wire reached out to me 2 or 3 years ago, or I reached out to them. They were looking for writers, and I wrote an article for them about how Josh Allen will be a top 5 quarterback that year. Now, at the time, the moderator responded to me and said, LOL, Josh Allen, you had me at that. Basically, how do you think that Josh Allen is going to be a number 1 quarterback at the end of the year after we were all laughing about how his inaccuracies? So in that, I gave a very detailed report about how much Josh Allen was going to be a number 1 wide receiver that year. Guess what? My article apparently wasn't, maybe it wasn't good, well written enough, but it wasn't good enough. And they went with some Giants article about the Giants. Well, the Giants imploded that year, and Josh Allen finished as the quarterback 1. Like my article stated, in basically every which way that the article stated. So I just felt like I'd throw that in on here real quick. Fuck you, Sleeper Wire. Just wanted to throw that in there. So moving on, still love Josh Allen, have loved Josh Allen for a long time, and you see the potential in him. It gets better every single year, and I just really can't say enough good things about Josh Allen. Keep drafting him as the number 1 quarterback because he's easily, in my eyes, the best overall quarterback in the league. You can say Tom Brady's the best quarterback in the league, sure, but overall, if you were starting a team tomorrow and Josh Allen isn't your pick, I think that's foolish to me. Moving on to running backs. Let's talk about James Cook, because this is a name that I've gotten a lot of questions about already. James Cook, to me, is the same exact thing as Devin Singletary or Zach Moss. So let me ask you something. Do you want Devin Singletary or Zach Moss? No. So because he's related to Dalvin Cook, you now want James Cook? It doesn't correlate to me, and it's not going to happen. So me personally, don't buy into the name hype on this. It's nothing against Zach Moss or Devin Singletary or James Cook talent-wise. This is a pass-first offense, and it's not going anywhere. They have one of the best passes in the league right now. He can run on his feet. He's gonna run on his feet. He's got Stephon Diggs. He's going to throw the ball a ton. He's going to be one of the more elite passers in the league. He's going to make moves on his feet on his own. And the running backs aren't going to have enough to eat. You're going to be relying on red zone targets and red zone carries that I don't believe are coming to you, because he's got wide receivers and a tight end that could really make a lot happen. So the running back becomes void of any relevance due to the fact that there's nothing for them to do. The game's already won and away by the time they need a running back. So if anything, you're hoping for garbage time from them. So as much as I like James Cook, as much as I like Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, I wanted him to be a thing. It just doesn't happen in Buffalo for running back. So me personally, don't buy into the James Cook hype. It's just a Buffalo running back to me. And as much as I want these players to do good, the team structure doesn't allow them to. So James Cook maybe in Atlanta would be talking about, but James Cook here, I just can't. So any running back in Buffalo, I just feel is a complete avoid for me, and I really don't want any part of them. But let's look onto a silver lining about the Buffalo Bills skill position players. That's wide receiver and tight end. Let's start off with Diggs. Diggs is absolutely elite. Keep drafting him where you're drafting him. Don't draft him before CD. I'm not doing that. But I put him right about where Stephon Diggs ends with Devonta Adams. My man Adams. He's up on the wall. That's signed, by the way. Love that piece. We got to get that framed, and I got to get that window thing out of here. But Diggs is elite. We got him. You got to keep going with him. And you got Gabe Davis, too. So the wide receiver, Gabe Davis, we talked about him on the Sleeper Show. Wildly underrated, massive playoff game against the Chiefs. We go more into his Gabe Davis's numbers and whatnot on the Sleeper Show, but he opened himself up as the wide receiver 2 inevitably in this on this roster. He is easily the wide receiver 2 now, and when you are the de facto wide receiver 2 for Josh Allen, it means a lot. So I do believe that Gabe Davis, even though he's not one of those flashy names that we've talked about, we could be talking about him as an Adam Thielen-like type player next season, where he's not going to outshine the wide receiver 1 on that team, because the wide receiver 1 is just too talented and demands targets too often. But Gabe Davis is going to get his, and he's going to have weeks where he finishes above Stephon Diggs. He's going to have double touchdown weeks. He's going to keep doing these. He's going to have a couple weeks where he has 100 yards and 7 catches. So I do believe that Gabe Davis has opened himself up and solidified himself as the wide receiver 2 in this offense. And even better for Gabe Davis's case when it comes draft season for fantasy football is that a lot of people are all over Isaiah Mckenzie, and I don't believe Isaiah Mckenzie is anywhere close to the talent or has earned the trust of Josh Allen that Gabriel Davis had, like he did in that Chiefs game. The Bills would not have come close to the Chiefs if it wasn't for Gabe Davis in that game, and Josh Allen is not going to forget that. Josh Allen is going to feel that rapport is there, and I do believe that Gabe Davis is going to be a huge sleeper this year. He's going to be in the wide receiver 2 realm. He even might be around the Brandon Cooks kind of feel, where he's super consistent but has way more upside than somebody like Brandon Cooks. So for his draft price, I believe he's going in like the 12th round or so. Love Gabe Davis. We, like I said, on the Sleeper Show, the wide receiver sleeper, if you guys want to check him out, Gabe Davis is on there. He's one of my guys, and I really do like him a lot. Moving on to tight end, Dawson Knox. Now, this player has amazing upside to me. As much as his role didn't really warrant him as an every week starter status in fantasy football, I do believe that Dawson Knox has a chance to increase in opportunities just given the rapport that he's earned and the way that this offense is going to run this year. It's going to run very pass heavy. They're going to keep passing the ball. They want to be able to beat the Bengals and the Chiefs on the other end. That's basically the primary focus of this Bills team. We know we can beat everybody. Can we beat the Chiefs or the Bengals? Well, you do not beat the Chiefs or the Bengals on the ground. You beat them in the air. And I do believe that this team could finish the year as the number 1 scoring offense and just go bananas with touchdowns. So Gabe Davis, Dawson Knox, Stephon Diggs, I feel like they're all going to eat a lot. And Josh Allen, I believe, will retain his number 1 quarterback status. Moving on to the Miami Dolphins. We are going to be talking about the players and the rosters over there, all the different changes, new regime change. We're talking about quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, running back Chase Edmonds and Elijah Mitchell. Wide receivers Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. They also got Cedric Wilson over there from the Dallas Cowboys. And we got tight end Mike G. So a lot of big names here that people are talking about within fantasy, but how are they going to correlate to fantasy and their relevance? How are they going to correlate from what I'm paying to what I'm receiving week 2 or 3, what I'm receiving week 16 and 17 when it comes to the championship? What am I really getting myself into is the question you need to ask yourself when it comes to Miami. Now, looking at Tua Tagovailoa, I love the Tua storyline. I love the fact that he's super underrated and people are looking at him as a joke and as laughable because you did the same thing with Josh Allen, you did the same thing with Kyler Murray. So I do believe that Tua Tagovailoa, and you're still doing it with Kyler Murray, and I do believe that Tua Tagovailoa has the chance this year to kind of outgrow that stigma. Will he do it early on? I do not believe so, but I do believe that later on in the season, Tua has a huge chance to emerge as a fantasy relevant quarterback. Now, that's not saying that he's going to go off and he's going to win games and they're going to be steamrolling through the playoffs. I mean fantasy relevant. I mean putting up 16 points a game with touchdown upside. I don't believe it's going to happen early on, but I do believe that later on in the season, maybe week 10, week 11, we're starting to look at him as a streamer, and then he might even develop into a quarterback that we talk later on. So when we get into the draft shows, we're breaking down schedules, stuff like that. That's what we're talking about. So all depends, but I do think it is in the realm of possibilities for Tua to become that player in fantasy that you're willing to trust on your team, much like Kirk Cousins, somebody who's not a huge flashy name, but he can kind of put in a solid effort for you and maybe even throw up 3 touchdowns, and then you feel really good about starting him. The running backs over here. We got Chase Edmonds and we got Elijah Mitchell. Now, to me, it is a massive, massive toss-up right now. It is hugely in the air of who it's going to be, and I've even listening to a lot of fantasy sources that I trust and I admire. It's kind of hit or miss. They're either on this side or they're on that side. So it's tough for me to really gauge any perception of how anybody really feels about these two, where you look at two and it's like, all right, people are basically writing them off. Chase Edmonds and Elijah Mitchell, there's really not much hype or anything behind them. Even out of camp, there's nothing we're really getting right now, so it's difficult for me to really press on who it's going to be. But from the outside looking in, like I was talking through about the offseason, I'm leaning on the Elijah Mitchell side. The offense that they've constructed, the offense that they're really looking for is a speed offense, one that is faster than everybody else and is difficult to keep up with for 4 quarters. Now, the offensive players that they put on this team to do that have the capabilities of doing that. Whether or not they are going to do that, that is a different story. So Chase Edmonds, Elijah Mitchell, they are both very elusive backs, and they are both explosive once they get the ball out of the backfield. So, as a pass catch. So if they're running, option plays, or if they're running screen passes, both of these backs are kind of a toss-up in who's going to be the more explosive back. As far as a straight speed goes, Elijah Mitchell, I do believe, is much, much faster than Chase Edmonds. So I do believe that he kind of has that tick, and that's what they're going to want in this offense, is who's faster. But Elijah Mitchell can easily get bowled aside by somebody who's more explosive, and he can move through the tackles a little bit better to get those yards after carry. So speed's not going to matter much if he's not catching the ball, 5 yards down the field with a wide open, lane to run. So it's hard for me to look at this team and say, definitely going to be Chase Edmonds, definitely going to be Elijah Mitchell, because I really don't think that anybody can actually make that case without shortchanging one of the others and their abilities. So it's difficult for me to place my flag on anybody, but I'm just going to take the rudimentary approach. We'll deep dive into these guys a little bit later, but we're going to take the rudimentary approach and say that speed is going to win out, and I do believe it's going to be Elijah Mitchell. A lot of people high on Chase Edmonds, a lot of people high on Elijah Mitchell. At the end of the day, they're both Miami running backs, and you really should be avoiding both. But if you put me to it and said you got to pick one, I'd be picking Elijah Mitchell. So we'll see how that plays out, but that's another one that I really don't care if I'm wrong about, because I didn't really want one of these players in the first place. Wide receiver. All right. Listen, we got to stop with the Tyreek Hill hate because he has Tua and he can't throw down the field. All right? I still see Tyreek Hill going in the 2nd and 3rd round in fantasy drafts. So for all the people saying, Tyreek Hill's not going to do this because of Tua, and then him to still be going at that ADP, someone's lying. One of y'all not telling the truth, because I'll tell you the truth right now on how I've been feeling all offseason with Tyreek Hill, and that is he's going to have some upside. He's not going to be Tyreek Hill with Patrick Mahomes because he's not with Patrick Mahomes. There's other players there now that are going to look amazing because they have Patrick Mahomes. But the difference is Tyreek Hill is such a different machine when he has the ball in his hands. It's kind of like the Amari Cooper in his prime form, where it doesn't matter who's getting him the ball. Get him the ball. As long as he has the ball, he's going to do something with it. That's what Tyreek Hill is. He's going to get peppered with targets. He's going to get opportunities. He's going to get plays in the playbook made just for him. He's going to have games where he absolutely goes off. Now, don't get me wrong. He's going to have disappearing acts. He's going to have games where the Dolphins just get absolutely imploded. Tua can't make anything happen, whatever it may be. But I do believe that once this team gets rolling, Tyreek Hill is still going to be the same player that he was as far as fantasy relevance. If you go back and look at Tyreek Hill's game logs, they were pretty hit or miss last season, and a couple other times where you looked at him and you were like, yeah, he's the number one wide receiver, but he's doing 45-point games. I don't need 45-point games when you're giving me 6 points the next week. I need 20-point games every single week out of a wide receiver one, or 15-point games, whatever it may be. So looking, and this is full PPR. By the way, I always say that. It's full PPR that we talk about on this show. But when we look at it, he needs the consistency. I do believe there is a realm of possibility for Tyreek Hill to have better consistency than he did in Kansas City, but it's because of how often in the rule of necessity Tua will have when he has Tyreek Hill. Now, obviously, on the other side, there's Jalen Waddle, and they do have a report, him and Tua Tagovailoa. He has the appeal. But I'm not sure how his consistency is affected by how much Tyreek Hill needs to be involved, how much they went and got him to be the guy that needs to be involved. So I think Jalen Waddle's stats do take a decline. He does take a bit of a hit. He's going to have weeks, but I do believe he has outlier weeks that we're really not going to be, not going to care for. There's probably going to be tight ends that do better on, a regular basis more than Jalen Waddle does. So even in a flex consideration, there's a lot of other players that I believe in the draft with besides Jalen Waddle. I've left the mock drafts with Tyreek Hill quite a few times. I've never left a mock draft with Jalen Waddle. And I don't think that's by accident. I think it's because his ADP somewhere in like the 9th or 10th round, or the 11th round, I mean, there's no way I can't find somebody else that I'd rather like with higher upside than Jalen Waddle. So for me, it's very difficult. I'd much rather have an Adam Thielen than Jalen Waddle. But with Tyreek Hill, I think we really need to cut it out with talking about how this is a severe downgrade for him, because I think his consistency could, rise with the fact that he is Mr. Necessity in that offense now. They don't have a Travis Kelsey. But what they do have is a Mike G. How you like that segue and rollover? So Mike G, one of my tight end sleepers for the year, and the reason I talk about this is the same reason I talk about the rule of necessity, and I think the same thing that I'm talking about with rule of necessity with Tyreek Hill can also exist for Mike Gesicki. Now the reason being, when you look at Travis Kelsey, okay, we love Travis Kelsey. He's a beast with or without Tyreek Hill, right? But like I said on the Sleeper Show, Tyreek Hill does a lot to a defense, and if you're on that defense and you're staring at Jalen Waddle on this side and Tyreek Hill on that side, you better not be playing press coverage, and you're probably going to be in cover 3 a lot, or in nickel a lot. Probably not nickel, but there's going to be teams who play out 3 deep backs, 4 deep backs quite a lot. And if that happens, then the inside route and the seam routes are extremely vulnerable, and that belongs to Mike G. So if you play Madden, you probably understand what I just said. If you're a casual fan, you don't. But basically, fast wide receivers means people over there, very worried, leaves this spot open, leaves the middle open. So if they leave the middle open, who's it go to? The tight end. Tight end's going to catch those 5-yard routes that you guys say that Tua is best at. So I really do believe that Mike G can be a stat monster this year, a PPR monster this year, a red zone monster this year. Because when you're in the red zone and you're passing, they're going to be looking at Tyreek Hill. They're going to be looking at him. That 5 yards, inside route or out route, that little, kind of post that Seahawks tried to run in that Super Bowl against the Patriots, that's Mike G's, except you don't throw it to the inside guy. That's Mike G. He's on the outside, and he's going to catch that pass, and you're going to have to defend him with a safety or, a linebacker. One-on-one against Mike G, that's going to be tough. So I think Tua and them grab that. I'm really excited for Mike G's potential this year and his opportunity to be Mr. Necessity. But don't sleep on Tyreek Hill. And Tua, he could be maybe a guy that we talk about later on. Now let's talk about something not so fun, something that I actually hate. And now there's not many things that I hate in this world, but one thing that I absolutely loathe are the New York Jets. Now, I am a Patriots fan, as much as I don't like to admit that on the show because we don't have a popular reputation within the football community, but I can't stand the Jets, and there's a real big reason why. First of all, I've met a lot of Jets fans. You all kind of suck. But moving on to quarterback, when we're talking about the Jets, Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco, that also kind of sucks. Now, I'm not going to lie. I'm rising on Zach Wilson a little bit, and there's a part of me that wants Zach Wilson to save the Jets franchise. So as much as I don't like the Jets, it's more of a kind of a friendly rivalry with me, where I'm like, why are you even a team? Like, why do you exist? You should be so embarrassed with yourself that you just sell the team for money, or just do something else. Just be a different team, because you guys have tried so hard. You have so many losses, and it's just very, very embarrassing. It's almost embarrassing to host you whatever team is hosting you. It's almost kind of embarrassing to be like, oh, we're playing those guys. So if anybody deserves to get relegated, it's the Jets. I can't talk about how much I dislike the Jets enough, and you're kind of worse than the Browns, and nobody talks about it. But anyway, Zach Wilson is the quarterback there, and I do find myself rooting for Zach Wilson to kind of be the new guy for the Jets and to kind of bring them some hope, because as much as I don't like Jets fans, I do wish their happiness, so I do wish they're happy with their team. So I hope that Zach Wilson does become that guy. It's difficult, though, because this team is just so porous. They basically need a new revamped everything, and even if they did that, I think they would still suck. So Joe Flacco could be the quarterback as well. We'll talk about that in a second. Running backs are Breece Hall, Michael Carter. The wide receivers are Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, and the newly drafted Garrett Wilson. The tight end is Tyler Conklin, number 1 on the depth chart, which is strange. And number 2, newly acquired from the Bengals, CJ Uzomah. So very odd there. We'll talk about that in a second. But no way in hell am I trusting a fantasy quarterback from the Jets ever. I don't care if it's Zach Wilson. I don't care if it's Joe Flacco. I don't care if it's Joe Namath. I am not trusting a quarterback from the Jets, and I'm not putting him on my fantasy team. So we can roll right by that because you all should be in the same exact camp with me. I don't care if it's a 2-quarterback league. I'll figure something out. I'm not playing him. I'll play Mariota before I play Joe Flacco or Zach Wilson. But Zach Wilson, he does have surgery, so 4 to 6 weeks, he could be missing time. We'll see some Joe Flacco action. Moving on to running back, we got Breece Hall and Michael Carter. Breece Hall had been drafted to the Jets, and I do believe that this ruins Michael Carter's value. So as much as I don't like the Jets or fantasy players for the Jets, I did really like the upside of Michael Carter and the talent of Michael Carter. So now that Breece Hall has arrived to the Jets, I believe he ruins all of that value. And as much as people might be looking at Breece Hall going, oh, he's going to be the new workhorse. This is a Jets thing that they do, is that they figure out that they can run this guy, and then they just completely shoot themselves in the foot and don't do it. So Breece Hall will have games, he will have moments, but I would not roster him long-term because I really don't believe in the Jets themselves. I really don't believe in themselves to offer any sort of consistency. So you can be high on Breece Hall, you can be excited for him, but take him very late on in rounds because he might be somebody that you're dropping to the waiver because he lacks that consistency. So even if he comes out the first couple of weeks and has big games, we'll be diving into that very, very soon. But I do not believe that Breece Hall returns that value. He's going to need a lot of red zone work in order for him to be any sort of relevant. And the Jets don't get red zone work. They just don't end up there. They do a lot of punt work, so draft the punter. Moving on to something that might be sort of relevant, and that's the pass catchers. I really loved Elijah Moore coming into this year as being a guy that could be like Brandon Cooks, where he gets super hyper targeted and has consistency. That he might not be a flashy name, but at least you feel confident with putting him in as your wide receiver 3 or flex. But Garrett Wilson comes along, and Garrett Wilson is one of those players that anywhere else I believe he commands targets. They also have Corey Davis there, so the way that the ball's likely going to get spread around between an offense that really can't get out of their own way, you're not going to want to try to pick up these games. I do believe that Garrett Wilson's going to be involved a lot more than we want, when we want Elijah Moore to be a fantasy starter. And with that, it's going to be very difficult for you to trust anybody in this offense, and I'm not touching this at all. No way. So I loved Elijah Moore. Unfortunately, you got to let him go. You got to kind of move on. If you want to draft him later on in leagues, hoping that Garrett Wilson doesn't take those targets, you can. But I really think it's inevitable that this team just becomes a crapshoot for wide receiver and running back. And speaking of that, I believe it's going to be a crapshoot at tight end as well. You got CJ Uzomah, who I thought was another big body tight end that they could really use down the seams and really kind of use in the red zone when they need to, or kind of, that 5-yard guy, and now they have Tyler Conklin above him. So even when I'm looking at this roster and I'm like, nice, you guys got 2 tight ends that you could use, you're going to mess it up both. You're going to mess up both of them. Let's just be honest. So I'm just kind of calling a spade when it comes to the Jets. You just keep on doing it, and until this is one of those situations like Odell Beckham Jr. Okay, Odell Beckham Jr. was on our undraftables list 2 years ago, where I was like, I'm not touching him. No way. I don't care where he is. I'm not touching him. The reason being is that it's the same thing as the Jets. Prove me wrong. Until you prove me wrong, I am not touching it, and I don't care who was right about it. I don't care. Like, if somebody comes up to me at the end of the year, and they're like, oh, I was so right about Zach Wilson. Dude, knuckle bump, congratulations, that was a great call, but no way in hell am I taking that chance. Good for you. Good for you for taking the 1 in a million call. I hope you bet on it, but no way am I taking that chance, and I'm willing to be wrong on that. I'm willing to, not hurt my fantasy team that bad and hurt their reputation. What if you got a Justin Jefferson as wide receiver 1? You're gonna put him next to Elijah Moore? Gross, dude. Gross. Moving on to the last team. Is this the last team? Yes, this is the last team, which is good because I only have a few more minutes before we have to close out the show because I don't want to keep you here too long. We are going to be talking about the New England Patriots. So my favorite team. Unfortunately, like I said, I don't want that to say that because for some reason we don't get no love. Tom Brady really hurt us, the reputations. Nobody likes people who win. Nobody likes people who get accused for cheating. Nobody likes somebody who's got a DVAC quarterback. I get it, man. The hate is kind of warranted. But I am a Patriots fan because I live in this region. I've been a Patriots fan since Terry Glenn, so don't get on me for that. But let's talk about the Patriots. Quarterback Mack Jones. We got running backs for Mondre Stevenson and Damien Harris. They got wide receivers Devonta Parker, Jacoby Myers, Kendrick Bourne, and tight end Hunter Henry. So let's talk about Mack Jones. Now, Mack Jones, when you look at him from face value, NFL is really, really trying to push this Mack Jones narrative. They're really trying to push Mack Jones into the conversation of like, dude, he really sangs with Josh Allen and them, right? No, he doesn't. Stop that. No, he doesn't. So, me personally, I like Mack Jones. But I believe him to be more of a bridge quarterback than a forever quarterback. I believe that for the next few years, he can do what he needs to do, but then we're looking at the same thing as every other team going, crap, we ain't got a quarterback. We got to go figure something out. So, whoever got drafted this year, Kenny Pickett, a few of those guys, one of them is probably going to be the Patriots quarterback in 4 years. But anyway, I love Mack Jones. I hope I'm wrong about that. I hope he does well. I don't wish him bad, but just from looking at the games and everything, he has exciting tenure. But is it going to be enough to get over the Buffalo Bills and the Chiefs and the Bengals? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And that's the game you're playing right now. So, Mack Jones, he's an exciting quarterback to watch. He, just like the rest of these guys, Tua, Josh Allen, Zach Wilson, they're fun to watch. I wish them success, and I'm excited when they do good. Basically, from the top to the bottom, the consistency is what really becomes a problem in New England, especially for Mack Jones. All these players that we've been talking about, consistency is king. And as much as you want to look at somebody like Mack Jones and kind of propel him to be one of these hot, young quarterbacks that are actually going to return that value that you want, Bill Belichick doesn't play that game. He plays game script. He plays, I'm going to run this game a lot. I'm going to pass this game a lot. I'm going to pass to this guy a little bit. They're going to play the other team's weakness. So in order for you to really know who is going to be successful in New England, it has to be on a weekly basis, and you have to be in Bill Belichick's head, which none of us are ever going to do. Nobody's ever going to understand what Belichick is doing or why he does what he does. That's why he's Bill Belichick. So me personally, when it comes to these, players, I have to be convinced of their consistency. And if I'm not, I got to pass. So Mack Jones for me, absolutely a pass. So I know it looks like I'm trying to catch my breath. I just ran upstairs, coming back upstairs to do the show. I cut it. You didn't know it. Whatever. I'm back. But moving on from Mack Jones, we got Devonta Parker coming over from Miami. That is an exciting Patriots signing, right? Wrong, because Devonta Parker needs consistency. Jacoby Myers is there. Kendrick Bourne is there. Jacoby Myers last year, probably the most consistent player on the Patriots. Terrible. You didn't want him. You wanted him for certain weeks, and when you played him, he burned you. So, again, you need the consistency. It's not there, and it really hurts when you want these players to end up somewhere where they have relevance, and that kind of happened with Devonta Parker to me. I'm a Patriots fan, and when Devonta Parker ended up on the Patriots, I was like, wow, man. That's not enough for what the Patriots need, and it's not enough for Devonta Parker to need. He needs to be able to eat a little bit. He needs to be a wide receiver 2 role who can get some high upside. Now he's thrusted into a wide receiver 1 role with the Patriots. not looking good, man. So not looking good for as far as what I think the Patriots wide receiver, class should have been, how they should have looked coming into this year. It just looks like accessory pieces for Mack Jones to be mediocre. So let's get into some good news. We're going to be talking about all signs pointing to Rhamondre Stevenson, and that was John's sleeper running back pick that he felt he really didn't want to make. And then now that we're fast forwarding 2 weeks, like we said, you got to adapt, you got to stay up to date. It really looks like Rhamondre Stevenson is to return to the LeGarrette Blount role that the Patriots and Bill Belichick have wanted for so long. They've desperately felt like they needed to fill that LeGarrette Blount role. And now there's reports that they got Rhamondre Stevenson playing some James White role. Rhamondre Stevenson was a power back for them. So if they want him to start catching passes, being a little bit more involved, we might be looking at another 3-down back for the Patriots, which we haven't seen in a long, long time. So Damien Harris, not much talked about him. Not much at all. All the reports are about Rhamondre Stevenson. All the camp reports, all the excitement about Rhamondre Stevenson. So to John's point, like he said, there's a really good chance that Rhamondre Stevenson emerges as a 3-down running back in New England. And if he does, he will be very, very effective, because if you have one running back in New England, he's going to get the ball a lot, and he's going to get basically all the red zone work. So if we do have an isolated running back 1 in New England, he will be a running back 2, basically bottom line running back 2. So moving on to the last piece of news, and this is Hunter Henry, which was my bonus sleeper of the year, which I'm not staking my claim that he is going to be a sleeper, but he does have the isolated path to being an unstoppable fantasy tight end. Double-digit touchdowns, good yardage, good reception totals. The problem is he plays in New England. And like I said, it's all game script dependent, and Hunter Henry could fall off like that. Now, if Hunter Henry does become the de facto first target, first read, or something like that, with Mack Jones, which I think there is a reality where Hunter Henry becomes one of the people that Mack Jones hyper targets. If he does, I do believe that Hunter Henry can carry a tight end 2 with tight end 1 upside for the duration of the season. So I do believe that Hunter Henry has some upside there, and he has some potential. But as far as the Patriots go, it's the consistency is king. You got to have it, and if you don't, that's a problem. So everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. I apologize for me. It sounds like I'm, hyperventilating over here. I had to run downstairs to get my daughter something, and then I came back to finish the show. But since you made it through here tonight, and you have graced me with your presence till the end of the show, I will give you the bonus show for next week. I don't know what day it's on, but next week we will be dropping the bold prediction show. So I'll try to get John in here. He'll have 3, I'll have 3, maybe we'll do more, maybe we'll do a little bit of an extended show on a weekend or something like that. But it's going to be our bold predictions show, and I already got my 3 lined up. I've had my 3 lined up for a long time. You've probably only heard 1 on here so far, but the other 2 I'll jump in as well. And I'm very excited to drop that show. So everybody, thank you so much for joining me. As always, I am NathanPaswell. Follow me on all the good stuff. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Fade out to the outro.